I am no YouTuber by any means, so 90% of the videos I do on my channel are me experimenting with stuff and sharing my experiments with everybody on YouTube, because when I want to hear what something sounds like or like the possibilities of tones I can get out of something, I turn to YouTube and I would type in Schecter Riot Session demo or something like that, and find it and hear what it sounds like. But every now and then, I feel qualified to do like an actual review of something and not just show you the way it sounds. And that would be the case with the bass that I hold right here before you now. So yes, this is the Schecter Riot Session 5 bass. This is part of the Session series from Schecter that are all swamp ash maple on maple with this color scheme finish. Also, all have black hardware and they all have EMG pickups and electronics. Well, as you can see, that's not the case anymore with this one. I'm going to get into to everything as we go. I had seen these basses a while back when they originally retailed for somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 to $700, which is the best deal for your money that you can get from Schecter, in my opinion. Now the 5 strings retail for $8.99, so for that, I don't know, it's a little bit pushing it for me. When I found this one, it was used at Guitar Center. It was in stock form. It was missing one knob on the EQ, which is a small knob. It's kind of a cool little touch. And it was going for $425 or $450. I can't remember, as a used price, which was quite a deal. So I promptly grabbed it off the wall and played it to make sure that it didn't have any buzzy frets, and it did not. Now, it does have one very strange, unique thing that I may be able to show off even just with this microphone. So if I play 7th fret G string, it sounds like that. If I hold 7th fret G string and here, I have no idea what's happening there, but I realize this a lot because when I'm trying to play a B minor, because this and this is like a B minor 10, like a 10th chord. I don't know why this doesn't buzz, but then I fret here, which is a few and far between kind of thing for me to play. This bass was great, and it is cool in a few ways. It's one of the few modern-ish basses that I know of that has a maple fretboard, and these blocks are actual ebony, and they're not just on the front, they go to the side, so you do not have dots to mark your frets, 3, 5, whatever you have a block, which is a really cool thing. I think it's great. This is on the good weight side of what I would say for a 5 string. It's under 10 pounds. It's a little chunky, but it's on the upper end of 9 pounds, which is pretty good for a 5 string. And this longer upper horn here that sort of makes the bass look like an Ibanez BTB or something like that is what I get. This makes it balance really well, and when I put this on, I don't feel the weight hanging on me. Like, yeah, it doesn't hurt my back is what I'm getting at. So now I'm going to get a little bit into pros and cons, because I do think it's good to know everything. And I could probably find a con with every instrument. It's just a matter of how big of a con that is. Okay, so pros of this bass is the cool look. In its stock form, it sounds good. EMGs are like dead silent, and despite the thing with EMGs is they're completely active, and what I'm noticing today is a lot of basses are doing an active passive kind of hybrid thing. With EMGs, you're stuck, in active mode, but the battery life is insane. I had two 9 volts, because this is an 18-volt circuit, last me over a year, and I probably could have stretched out to a year and a half, something like that, without playing it constantly, a couple times a week for a few hours at a time. It was lasting a while. Continuing with the pros, I like the 12-inch fretboard radius. It's pretty flat. It's not ridiculously flat. The big frets, they're jumbo. They're not extra jumbo. I can't remember exactly what it's called. They are pretty big. They are nice. I prefer medium frets, as I have learned over time. I did not know that until very recently. I like the Graphtec nut. Supposedly Grover tuners are not a pro, but it sounds like a pro. We'll get into that here. I had to replace mine. And a nice chunky bridge that is easy to set up well. That is kind of a pro and a con is in stock format, the two EMG pickups look exactly the same, but they are not. So for this model and the Stiletto model, the EMGs are 40 J and 40 DC. What does that mean? 40 jazz and 40 dual coil is what it means. So 40 means it's 4 inches this way, 4.0. And then the next letter tells you something about it. Well, the J and the DC are both regular EMGs with ceramic magnets. The J is essentially like a jazz bass single coil, but it is stacked. It's a stacked coil, but it sounds kind of like a jazz bass. So it's pretty cool to be able to pan to this pickup and have like a jazz bass neck pickup sound, but it's active ceramic, so it's not exactly like a jazz bass. And then pan to the bridge and have the big, crazy, ridiculous output DC pickup as well. They're both very, very bright and very, very articulate, which could mean one of two things. It could mean they're so bright that it's not going to fit in well with your music, or you can EQ it a lot and get it to work, or it is exactly what you want if you're playing like slap or tap or like chord stuff. It could be exactly what you want. The DC pickup is a little harsh and high output, and putting it toward the bridge is a questionable choice in my opinion. A lot of people, you'll see this online, think that it sounds sort of like a Music Man pickup. So a Music Man more position would be really good. So it seems pretty versatile, but here's the problem. See, the output difference between a J and a DC is huge, and I fought with it for a while, so much so that I thought my bass was defective, or that the pickups were wrong, or something. But as I came to find out through a lot of experimentation, the J and the DC are just impossible to blend in a way that I like. They do blend, like it's got a blend knob, but stock format, if you've got them both decent, a distance from the strings, and you put it in the middle, you're going to hear mostly the DC. So I flipped them, first of all. This is about to be a long process talking about pickups. So I flipped them, and I liked it more. The J in the bridge at that point, all it does when you blend to the middle is bring in just some bridge positioned jazz pickup clarity and hit on top of the big fat humbucker here. So that was pretty cool. And then I don't know, if you wanted to do some jazz bass sounds with the J in the bridge, I wouldn't recommend it. So what I'm getting at is this: I like EMG pickups, but it was very hard for me to get a blend out of the stock format. So the easiest fix, in my opinion, would be to buy another DC and just have two DC models. You buy one pickup, it's solderless, you take out a couple screws, plug it in, boom, done. And I could have done that. I did do that at one point, but I couldn't leave well enough alone. So I went spiraling down a rabbit hole, and I tried the 40J, the 40DC, the 40P5, which is a P-shaped magnet under, sort of like a P-base. And then on top of that, a bunch of X models. So I tried the 40CSX, the 40P-CSX5, which is another P shape, and then also an 808, which is a guitar pickup with an Alnico magnet. I tried so many, I can't remember all of them. I thought I really liked the X series, and I did, but I think if I ever did another EMG bass in the future, I would not do X. And I learned that with EMGs, the best blend is to buy two of the same model. See, CSX is just a model, and they all have the same output and same tone. And it's not like these, which are Nordstrands, we'll get to that later, where they overwind the bridge pickup. It's just the same model. So, you know, in my eyes, I would think that getting a higher output one in the bridge would be better, but it just doesn't work that way with EMGs. It's very difficult. So, I don't know, with the CS pickups, I got to the point where I liked the tone in the middle, blend them both, but it was lacking a little something in the mids. So I would always crank it slightly toward the neck. So if I rolled all the way to the neck, I didn't like it because it was too nasal, mid-rangey. If I put it in the middle, it was not mid-rangey enough, so I had to blend somewhere in the middle. And then I didn't really like going toward the bridge. And I was trying to dial in EQ to, I don't know, get it to sound the way I wanted it to sound. It was a big-time struggle. And then I tried the PCSX, which is like a P-bass along with the CSX, and that was nice too. But the middle didn't sound as good as the 2CSX, but rolling all the way to the neck sounded great. Also, the PA5X, which is an Alnico P in the neck, sounded amazing too. But see, at this point, why don't you just play a P bass? Which brings me back around to something. On my channel lately, I've been uploading a whole lot of P bass themed videos, just experimenting with P basses. And this is why I really want to showcase this bass, because I think every player should have something similar to this in their arsenal. Something with two humbuckers and active and 5 strings. I think it's a great idea, as long as I don't know, there are probably a few players that I could think of that would never really need this, and that would be somebody who's playing something like, I don't know, jazz or old school, but you could still make it fit. Don't get me wrong. I mean, look at, I don't know, people like Yannick Gwizdala. They can make a bass like this fit. I would consider it a very minor con that the battery compartment requires 2 screws and is not just that little pop thing. That's really minor. The pickup balance thing is one of the biggest struggles. The stock tuning keys are actually not something that they still sell, or maybe they never sold them on their own. So if you have one break like I did, you're unable to find one that matches the others, and you just got to replace them all. I did have one break, but I'm fairly certain that this bass was built in 2016. So if you consider the fact that 7 years before a tuning machine broke, I wouldn't necessarily fault it that much. I was shocked, to say the least, but it's easy to find a replacement set. Another pro that I just thought of for this bass is that this pickup size allows you to do almost anything, because a lot of people make EMG size. So these are Nordstrands. I'm also going to try some Aguilars here in a minute as well. I think if I really wanted to continue with the EMG setup, hindsight 2020, I probably could have just put the TW models in here. So given that these are sort of universal pickup sizes, you have your pick of the litter between Nordstrand, Aguilar, Delano, EMG, Seymour Duncan, almost any manufacturer under the sun, and therefore you can get almost any tone under the sun that you want with this bass. Now, if you pay $900 for this bass, you may not want to spend any more money on it. Me having spent $450, and of that $450, about half of what I paid was actually trade-ins. I took another bass that I wasn't really playing and a cajon and something else and traded toward it and spent $200 and something on this, which is great construction and good for exactly what it was. And I wasn't really out a whole lot of money on all the different EMGs I tried because I was able to sell them afterwards. So what I'm getting at is, if you're able to find a deal like I did on a bass like this, it doesn't even have to be this one, something along these lines. The world is yours. You can make it sound like a P bass or a jazz bass or double humbucker bass or somewhere in between. It's really cool. And if you get, pickups that are coil splittable, hey, even better, right? You could throw jazz bass and humbucker into the same thing. So lately my preference has been for active passive setup for something like this, where I have an option to run passive in the event that a battery dies or something like that. And it's not just a battery dying. The failures I had with this bass, actually, I never had a battery die. When I had EMGs in it, I had the battery wires fray to the point where it wasn't carrying enough signal to the active system, including the pickups and the electronics. So I replaced it, but then I took out a blend pot and tried to do 2 volumes, and I had a problem with that one time where the neck pickup went out and I couldn't get it to come back without rewiring it. So basically what I'm getting at is always have a fail-safe, and I would consider anything with active passive a fail-safe, but it's not just a fail-safe as well. This is a Tone Monster preamp, and you have a gain knob on the internals, and you can choose to have your output and active and passive the same level. So then you just have a tone difference, and the tone knob on these only works in passive mode, which is really interesting. So what I propose that you could do is leave your tone knob turned down to your preferred level, all the way down, or like 10% is cool because it's nice and warm. And then you play in active mode for your slappy modern stuff, and then you pull up and you have vintagey kind of sounds. So you can, be playing a song, or you could start a song like this and then go and be ready to slap at the moment's notice. It doesn't save you a whole lot of time, having a knob pre-turned down, but I just think that's really cool. So a lot of basses are getting very expensive these days, due to inflation and some other stuff as well. I would not pay $900 for one of these now, if this is purely my opinion. The extra money on top of something like, let's say, a C4 Plus or a C4 Deluxe from Schecter, if you look those up, those are in the $500 to $600 range. So your extra $400 is for a different body and neck, wood, materials, whatever, and then you've got your EMG. Now, your whole EMG electronics setup can run you, it is possible for it to run you $200 to $300 to do that, and then paying somebody to install it if you have to do that. Now, I've finally learned how to do all this stuff myself to save money so that I don't have to worry about those things. But a lot of manufacturers are now upcharging way more than the worth of the pickups and the electronics that they're putting in their instruments. And that they don't pay $90 to $105 for an EMG pickup. They get a deal, right? So the amount of extra profit margin they're making is pretty huge. But if you can find one of these used, I think even up to $600 is a great deal. So like $600, the old new price was fantastic for EMG pickups. Like, come on. But if you can find a deal like I did, then you can afford to do whatever you want to it. And see, this is one of the reasons I almost prefer to go for something that's considered bare bones, but has really good construction, and then put whatever I want to into it, because I want to make it sound like my own, right? I don't want to be told what to make my bass sound like. I think if I had to address anything with Schecter, it would be that this is a good series of basses. I would be I don't know, if I could choose anything, I would continue this series or something similar with the swamp ash maple on maple and the block inlays. All of this is really cool. Apparently this has its own neck profile as well that's a little bit different than the other Riots or other stilettos and so on and so forth. So I would continue this series or something like it with different colored bodies and different like electronic setups. It would be pretty cool. It would be an interesting take on it. Before I get too sidetracked, the reason I think a lot of people should have a bass like this is you get a lot of mileage for your money. So like if you wanted to have one bass or two basses, something like this would be able to cover a lot of genres and a lot of tunings easily. So if you're like in a cover band, a lot of stuff where you may feel like you have to tune down to D or C, you can play on here. It's fine. Unless you're doing heavy metal where you got to chug on the open note and do all this stuff, you can probably get away with tuning to B and playing that C. And with, you know, two pickups, active electronics or whatever, you can change your tone between song to song. If you're in a variety band, something where you need to cover a lot, like you could do it with a style bass like this. It's a really good choice. And on top of that, the active passive thing I was talking about earlier is there for you as well. Now, all the things I just said, you know, what you could consider doing rather than a bass like this is a Sire M series bass. An M5 would, for brand new, an M5 5-string would be less than a brand new one of these, and has series, parallel, single coil, active and passive, sweepable mids, and a passive tone control, all stock and different colors. So I'm just throwing that out there. That's a really good choice. The string spacing is wider, so that could be a plus for most of you. I like this 17 millimeter. I can't remember if this is 17 or 17 and a half millimeter spacing. This is very comfortable. My first 5-string was an Ibanez Soundgear, and it had 16 and a half millimeters, and that's what I got used to. When I bought that 5-string, I got rid of my only 4-string I had at the moment. So I put myself in a position where I only had a 5-string bass. And I saw a lot of people asking about this lately. How do you get used to it? Well, you just play the 5-string, and you don't touch a 4-string, and you just, you know, make yourself get used to it. And I do recognize that at first the B string was just like a thumb rest, and I was playing my stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, I know a D's here, so let me, on the next time we're coming to a D, there we go. And then, okay, this next song, I have a C. Let me just make a big, there we go. And you keep doing that until you get more and more comfortable with it. And then if you're playing songs that have those notes anyways, then like, yeah, you're prepared for it.